Welcome to this explainer. If you look around right now, literally almost everything you buy, from that artisanal coffee bean bag to the latest tech gadget you ordered online, it all comes in some kind of container or package. Today, we're taking the dense, let's be honest, somewhat dry sustainability accounting standards for the containers and packaging sector and translating them directly into bottom-line financial impacts. If you think sustainability in this massive industry is just about, feeling good or getting good PR, think again. We're going to unpack how these environmental and social metrics actually dictate cash flows, capital costs, and long-term business survival.
The whole foundation for our deep dive today is the SASB standard. And here's the real kicker. As of August 2022, these standards officially moved under the stewardship of the International Sustainability Standards Board, which is part of the IFRS Foundation. What does that actually mean for us? Well, it means these disclosure topics aren't just fringe, nice-to-have guidelines anymore. They are fully integrated into the global baseline for sustainability-related financial info. Investors literally rely on this stuff to assess a corporation's true value.
We've got a packed agenda today. We'll be decoding the SICRST CCP classification, breaking down the true financial impacts of sustainability, and looking at how to manage operational environmental risks. Then, we'll dive into product safety, unlocking life cycle supply opportunities, and finally, we'll map out that long-term financial horizon. All right, let's get right into it. First up, decoding SI6 RTCP. Let's take a macro view of where this industry actually sits in the grand scheme of things. Under the Sustainable Industry Classification System, or SICS for short, we're looking squarely at the resource transformation sector. If we drill down one more level, we find the containers and packaging industry, known as RTCP. We are talking about the global B2B giants here. Their entire business model revolves around converting raw natural resources into the packaging that, honestly, literally every other industry completely relies on. Now, to actually make sense of the sustainability data, we first have to wrap our heads around the massive scale of these operations. The standard uses quantitative activity metrics to do this. We're talking about tracking millions of metric tons of production across substrates like paper, wood, glass, metal, and plastic. Just think about the sheer volume of cardboard boxes alone that get delivered to your neighborhood every single week. It's staggering. When a business is processing physical materials at that kind of astronomical volume, even a tiny, seemingly insignificant inefficiency quickly becomes a massive financial sinkhole. Moving on to our next key area, the financial impacts of sustainability and what it really means for the bottom line. Because this is the ultimate question for investors assessing this space, right? Why do non-financial ESG metrics actually matter? How do things like greenhouse gas emissions or managing hazardous waste literally affect cash flow, revenue generation, and the cost of capital? Well, it essentially comes down to a strategic playbook with a dual reality. On one side of the coin, companies must play defense. They have to defend the baseline by dodging regulatory fines, avoiding resource scarcity bottlenecks, and navigating incoming carbon taxes. But on the flip side, they've got to play offense. That means actively capturing new market share with innovative materials and boosting their brand value with commercial buyers who are increasingly eco-conscious. Let's dig a little deeper into that defensive strategy, looking at how to manage operational environmental risks and truly defend that baseline. So, because the packaging industry is incredibly energy intensive, it naturally generates massive Scope 1 emissions. Those are the direct greenhouse gases released right into the atmosphere from burning fossil fuels on site during the manufacturing process. And here's the bottom line. High emissions expose these companies to immediate, hard-hitting compliance costs, cap-and-trade schemes, and direct carbon taxes. But if you manage this efficiently, you secure a fundamentally lower, much more competitive operating cost structure. And then, of course, there's water. Manufacturing packaging requires literally billions of gallons for processing, cooling, and steam generation. The SASB standard actually mandates tracking the water drawn from regions classified as having high or extremely high baseline water stress. Think about it. Withdrawing water in areas where it's already 80% depleted, that is a massive operational red flag. A single severe drought in one of these regions can halt production entirely and send procurement costs skyrocketing overnight. Defending that baseline also means keeping a really tight leash on specific metrics. We're talking about tracking total energy consumed, strictly monitoring hazardous waste like heavy metals to see what's actually getting recycled, and recording any non-compliance with water quality permits. Slipping up on any of these doesn't just harm the local ecosystem. It immediately triggers short-term regulatory penalties, litigation, and expensive remediation liabilities, stuff that will eat right through a company's profit margins. Next up, we shift gears to product safety and brand equity, focusing on the immediate consumer risks involved. You have to remember, packaging constantly touches the food we eat and the medicines we take. Because of that, product safety is absolutely non-negotiable. The standards specifically track things like the total number of units recalled and how companies handle emerging chemicals of concern, things you've probably heard of, like BPA or formaldehyde. A safety incident here is devastating. It means instant, forced product redesigns, massive refund programs, and a frankly catastrophic loss of brand trust among commercial customers. All right, now let's flip the playbook. Let's talk about unlocking lifecycle supply opportunities and how these companies play offense. Playing offense really means looking closely at product lifecycle management. The standards actually ask for the direct revenue generated from products that are reusable, recyclable, or compostable, and we're measuring this in actual hard dollars and cents. By designing out end-of-life impacts and utilizing recycled content, these companies aren't just, doing a good deed for the planet. They are actively capturing premium revenue from commercial buyers who are heavily demanding eco-friendly solutions. And this offensive strategy extends deep, deep into the supply chain. Companies must disclose exactly what percentage of their raw materials, like wood fiber and aluminum, comes from certified sustainable sources. We're talking about groups like the Forest Stewardship Council or the Aluminum Stewardship Initiative. Securing these certified materials is definitely not just a PR badge of honor. It fundamentally stabilizes long-term costs, it mitigates the risk of supply chain disruptions, and it acts as a hugely powerful market differentiator. Finally, let's tie all this together by mapping the impact across the long-term financial horizon. When we map all these metrics out, a really clear financial trajectory starts to emerge. In the short term, companies are at risk of being hit by immediate shocks. Think regulatory fines, emissions compliance costs, or sudden, unexpected product recalls. Then, in the medium term, the focus shifts heavily to capital expenditures. They're investing massive amounts of capital into energy efficiency and building sustainable supply chains. But it's in the long term where it all pays off. Those medium-term investments yield sustained market share growth through fully circular, reusable, and compostable packaging life cycles. The containers and packaging sector, sitting right there within the SICS resource transformation classification, really proves that sustainability is fundamentally about financial endurance and resilience. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Based on what we've unpacked about resource transformation today, just how exposed is your own sector's bottom line to these very same hidden environmental metrics? Thanks so much for joining me today.